a video clip about CASA. We're going to be sharing information over the next 3 Sundays about ways that we can support the fostering community in the greater Peoria area. We're pleased to have a speaker here about CASA this morning. A reminder, on the 22nd, we'll be collecting an offering, our Peace Parade offering. A third of that will go towards CASA, a third towards Foster Village Peoria, and a third of that towards the baby fold. So direct your attention to the screen, and Trevor and Julie, you can come up and
American author Edgar Hill said, "I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And I won't let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do." How about you? Would you like to do something for a child who has been abused, neglected, or abandoned? Advocate, alleviate, celebrate? There's an organization in your community that can equip you. We are Court-Appointed Special Advocates, or CASA, of the 10th Judicial Circuit, and we are for the children. Our work has been prominent in the Peoria area since 2005, helping hundreds of children each year. In 2018, we expanded to 4 additional counties. The expansion means there are more than 1,500 children in our area in need of a CASA. Do you have approximately 5 hours per month to give to a child who, through no fault of their own, is in the foster care or court system? Sad and lonely, confused, ignored, voiceless. A child who needs someone looking out only for him or her? Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak, or sit down and listen. But these children need a dedicated volunteer advocate to make sure their voice is heard. They need you to listen, to be their constant in the chaos, to meet with caseworkers, teachers, foster parents, attorneys, judges, and others to ensure the child's best interest is represented in court. To be the resource the judge can count on for insight, objectivity, and to raise awareness of concerns about the child's well-being. We are ready to support your volunteerism with training, a support staff, and continuing education. To help you succeed for the child, visit casaofthe10th.org/volunteer to learn more, or call us at 309-669-2939. We'd love to tell you what one person can do for the child today.
Good morning, church. One of the core values of the Bridge is asking questions, reaching out to our community, understanding our community, and so the next 3 Sundays, we're going to sit down and have a conversation about different parts of foster care, and I invited my friend Julie come and speak with us. We've known each other almost 20 years now, which is crazy, because I had hair and it was actually brown.
Mine was too.
Yeah, and so we had a lot of energy back then. We started on a mission trip in Dulac many, many years ago after Hurricane Katrina. We built 100 swing sets with Hope Swings 11 years ago.
Right. We took some to Louisiana.
We took some to Louisiana. So we've been partnering for many years just to help other people. And so when I thought about what we're going to do for foster care, I thought of you, and I heard this is one of your new adventures of being a CASA worker. So we just want to have a conversation and get to know you and get to know how CASA helps our community and what you've seen God working through that program. So I like a good origin story. So how did you get to know CASA? How did you get involved?
I had been hearing about CASA for a few years. This was, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 years ago. And initially, I figured out I didn't have the time for it. But as my kids, grew up and were starting to take off on adventures of their own, and a girl I had been mentoring was doing the same, I had a little gap. And I thought, CASA is where I'm feeling called. So I'm adopted, and so I have a passion for kids who are adopted or in the system or whatever their story may be. And so that's why CASA really rose to the surface as where I wanted to spend my time.
So how much commitment time? So you're talking about time.
Yeah.
How much really time does it take? What does it look like to get trained? What are the logistics of that?
So when I went through the training, it was 40 hours of in-person training over a 2-week window. That was in person. Now the training has changed, and I don't actually know as much about it because I haven't needed to do it again, right? But in the back corner, when we're done, Ryan can help us understand more about the exact training. I think it's done online now.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the average month, they want you to spend a minimum of 5 hours per month on your case.
Okay.
I kind of laugh at that number because my first case had 5 children in 4 different homes in 3 different schools. It was a big case. My current case has 1 child in 1 foster home in 1 school. So obviously the amount of time you spend is relative to how many kids you have in the family, how many foster homes you're dealing with, how many schools,
Phone calls, how many
caseworkers,
Yeah.
et cetera. So 5 is pretty bare bones. I don't probably need to spend more than, I'll say, 8 hours a month, I think, right now. The one child I have is pretty stable at the moment, but when I had the 5 kids, I was spending, it could have been easily 20 hours a month. So it
just depends on.
Yeah, but our supervisors are also sensitive to our availability, and if you don't have 20 hours a month, they're not going to give you a case with 5 kids.
So they kind of judge who can do what and where.
Sure. They have to be sensitive to that or it won't work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting being a part of the court system, right? You're like the eyes and ears of the judge. How has it been being a part of that?
Yeah, it's a big responsibility. So I know for a fact that my report that I prepare for the court is looked at by the judge, and I know that because when I sit in the courtroom, I can see the judge's computer screen from my spot in the jury box. That just is where we sit. And I often see my report on his screen during the hearing. So I know he's reading it, and I know the lawyers have read it. So that's a big responsibility to know that the work you're doing is truly being used by the court to determine next steps for the children you're representing.
Because people might not know, like in foster care, the judge is makes all the decisions. So it's up to the people in that case to kind of prove or just give some testimonies. But if that judge doesn't have the information, then it's just hard for them to make choices. And so a good CASA worker can really give clarity to a situation that maybe even a caseworker doesn't have, or especially lawyers, the people who don't have those hands-on experiences with the kids and families, and so it's really important.
Yeah.
So so you've done this for many years. Where have you seen God in these moments? Bill's talking about moments. I'm sure you've had so many of those, but can you think of a couple that you've had where you thought God is in this with me?
Yeah, so one really specific moment was just a few months ago. So the one case I have now has one girl. She's a teenager. I'm going to call her Laura. And when I was leaving one day, Laura said, "Bye, Julie, I love you." And I was a little caught off guard by that. She's been in the system for a long time. And I know she's hungry for someone to say, "I love you." But in that moment, I wasn't prepared to respond to that. And so I went home and I talked to my small group, and I'm like, I really feel like I need to say that to her because she needs to hear it. And it was stretching my heart a little bit. And the next time I went and visited her, same thing. "Bye, Julie, I love you." And I'm like, "I love you too, Laura." She needed to know that, she needed to hear that, but to me that wasn't God so much working in the system but in my heart, but also affirming, like, she's a person of value, and I've said that to her recently, like, no matter anything else going on in your life, you're a person of worth and value, and I always want you to know that, and I always want you to hear that from me, and you are loved. And so that was huge for me, but I could see in her face, like, that was really meaningful.
She wanted that. She was looking for that.
Yeah. I will admit it's a little more challenging when you're sitting in the courtroom to see God. I mean,
No.
you know it's happening, right? But like, sometimes you want to stand up and scream, I want you to see this detail, but you're looking at that one.
Yeah.
And that can be frustrating, right? But that doesn't mean God's not present in all of that. It doesn't mean he's not working through all of the people involved in that kid's life.
Yeah.
It's just a little harder to see it sometimes.
Exactly.
You know, but when I have a one-on-one moment with a child who hasn't lived with biological family in like 6 years and never will until they're an adult, when I can remind that child that they're a person of worth and value, like why would I, like how can you not see God in that, but also like your own heart just is so impacted by that.
So the time you put in to foster that relationship, that connection, sometimes you don't always get that, right?
Right.
So to get those moments, it's like, okay, a little bit
Yeah.
of, okay, I'm here for a good reason. So if somebody's here watching, listening, what would you give them advice to listen to their hearts to do
Yeah.
this? Is it something you would recommend? Is it something that's for everybody? What's your thoughts?
So I think anyone can be a CASA. If you're the person who says, I just want to take them all home, you can't do that. You're actually not allowed to foster and be a CASA. So you have to do one or the other. I'm not a good person for fostering. I just know my own personality. I know what works for me and what doesn't. But I know I'm a good CASA. And so it's good to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And for me, CASA is a really good lane for me to be in. CASA, and actually different attorneys have told me in the past, they like engineers as CASAs because they can be a little more objective quite often.
So when they're doing the reports, it's,
Yeah,
you know.
because you have to, there are no I statements in your reports. It's all like very factual, objective information. And so you have to take the emotion out of it. And that can be pretty hard. Retirees are great CASA workers. You know, you're coming out of a career, you're looking for something fulfilling. I was staying home with my family. It was a great, opportunity to fill that time. But anyone can be a CASA. You just have to find the right cases for your availability. The right. Yeah. It is a wonderful program, and there are so many kids who need CASAs. The number I saw this morning on the CASA website was this year, 450 children will be served by CASA. 1,200 need a CASA.
Yeah.
So there's a big gap.
Yeah. If you go to any child welfare court system, that's the first thing one of the judges says, can we get a CASA worker for this case? Because it's so valuable to have that information, that bridge of information from the court system to them, to the reality is such a needed thing. And so I appreciate you.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's helpful to know is, like a caseworker, they might be juggling anywhere from 15 to 30 cases. I'm kind of taking a stab at those numbers, but it's a lot. We can have no more than 2 cases. And so they do protect our time to a degree, but also then it gives you the time and space to engage more fully with the cases you do have.
Yeah, bandwidth. You have a little
Exactly.
more bandwidth. And we'll talk about foster care next week with the baby fold, and they'll say that there's a huge shortage of caseworkers, and so they're overwhelmed. So that's where CASA comes in and just kind of boosts up, because you're for the kids. You want the best for the kids, and when you have those one-on-ones, it makes a big difference. And so, well, the good thing is here at the Bridge, we ask questions. We want to ask questions, and so we are going to give you an opportunity to ask Julie a question. Ryan's back there. He works for CASA. He's got a table with information. And then Amy Kinzinger's here. She's going to sit back there, too. She's a CASA worker. But we want you guys to have this information, discern it, to see where God's calling you. Just to even know about it. I didn't know about it until we were in the system. We didn't, we just thought, who is this random person hanging out? And then we found out, oh, that's a CASA worker. We didn't know it until like 6-7 months into the system. So just to know that knowledge that there are people who are in the court system who are advocating for kids and loving on them and finding ways to give them hope. And so.
One other thing I think is helpful to know is that a CASA will stay with the child they're representing until their case closes. And so you make a commitment at least for 2 years, in my case longer, because both of my cases were quite long ones. where you may see caseworkers turn over every, oh my gosh, so often.
Too many.
So often. I mean, you might have 3 caseworkers or more in a year, but your CASA is the person who stays with the child from the time they are assigned to the case until the case closes. And so, like the one girl, Laura, who I mentioned, who I'm a CASA for now, her case I was assigned to in 2021, and she will be in the system until she's 18 or older.
She graduates over there.
I'm not going anywhere, but she's seen during that time probably 15 caseworkers.
Yeah.
So it becomes also this point of which you know that child better than anyone involved in their lives, and that's important to have that to have that consistency.
Well, I appreciate Julie and her time and all the work she's done. Can I pray for you and then the CASA? Heavenly Father, God, I thank you for all those who are hearing the call of CASA. We thank you for walking alongside those volunteers to show your love to those who need it the most, the kids who are in the system, God, that they are not lost because of the volunteers who come. We ask you to guide them and lead them in all they do. We thank you for Julie. We thank you for Amy. We thank you for all the CASA volunteers and the things they do that are just cannot be quantified, God. We thank you for loving us through those times. We thank you for Julie and her time. Bless her this day. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
So if you